Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Ghostrick deck profile. So you guys have been requesting for me to do this deck left and right, and I'm super excited to actually bring this one to you guys, because this deck is a super fun deck that summons out Skeleton, and I do have a little bit of a Skeleton mill build, but it's also kind of a beatdown build as well, so you can kind of revert back and forth in between whichever way you want to go. It really does work both ways. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you can become part of the notifications squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below, because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name, description of every single video, getting a signed card sent to the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile just like this one every single month that you're a patron. So without further ado guys, let's get straight on into this. Before we do, I really quickly want to give a shout out to one of my buddies, Sam. This is actually one of his favorite decks of all time, and so I want to give him a quick shout out guys, because he loves Ghostricks, and this is like his deck. Like, I always remember him for this deck, Natrias, and Ice Barriers, go figure. But it's a really fun deck that I remember I have a lot of fond memories dueling against him with this deck, so this one goes out to you guys. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and play 2 copies of Ghostrick Skeleton. This is kind of a skeleton mill build because we have a lot of mill cards in the deck, but you can also kind of pull off a little bit of a beatdown too. So what this card does is all Ghostricks have the ability that cannot be normal summoned unless you control a Ghostrick monster. And then once per turn, you can change them into face down defense position, and when flip face up, they have a particular ability. So I'm just going to go over the particular ability that when they're flip faced up. So when this card is flip face up, you can banish cards from the top of your deck whose from your opponent's deck, face down up to the number of Ghostrick monsters you currently control. So you always flip your Ghostrick Skeleton up last to banish the maximum amount of cards on your opponent's side of the field, or opponent's deck to the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Ghostrick Jangshi. Jangshi is probably the best one because she searches, which is really cool, because when she's flip face up, you get to add a Ghostrick from your deck to your hand whose level is less than or equal to the amount of Ghostricks that you have currently on the field. So if I have 3, I can add a level 3 from my deck to my hand. If I only have her on the field when I flip summon her, I can only add a level 1, which is good and bad all at once. We then play a single copy of Ghostrick Stein. Ghostrick Stein is when it's flip face up, you get to add a Ghostrick spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good to be able to add your Ghostrick spells and traps from your deck to your hand, like your field spell, your copy of Ghostrick Knight, Vanish, Scare, whatever you need, this card's got it. We then play a single copy of Ghostrick Mummy. Ghostrick Mummy is pretty good because you can change this card when it's on your side of the field. When it's face up, you get an additional normal summon, which is pretty good to be able to get your Ghostricks on your side of the field faster. It's a little slow sometimes because you'll have it on your side of the field face down. You'll have to set it first and then flip summon it. But the really cool thing is you don't want to open this card. You want to draw it later in the game once you've got a little bit of a board. So you can normal summon this card out and then immediately get that additional normal summon out. So you essentially get 2 normal summons if you have 2 Ghostricks on your side of the field. So it gets you like 4 monsters on the field, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of Ghoul. Ghoul is a card that I just recently threw in this deck, and I really like it. That's why I said I had a little bit of a beatdown in the deck. What this card does is, if you guys remember Black Wings, what it does is basically Sirocco the Dawn. It lets you target a Ghostrick monster you control, and it gains attack equal to all the Ghostrick monsters on your side of the field, and then it's the only monster that can attack, which is pretty good until your opponent's next end phase, which is pretty good. I like that effect to be able to gain the attack. It can get really big and really beefy. Just if you have Angel of Mischief on your side of the field and you target the Ghoul will go up to 3,100 just with the Angel of Mischief on your side of the field, which is pretty big, and it's kind of like the one card that helps you fight back if you're not trying to stall. I then play 2 copies of Ghostrick Doll. Ghostrick Doll is a really interesting card that during the end phase, you change as many face-up Ghostrick monsters or face-up monsters on the field as possible to face-down defense, and then you can special summon a Ghostrick monster from your deck in face-down defense position whose level is less than or equal to the monsters that were flip face-down by this card's effect, which is pretty good. I like that effect to just flip them all face down so you can get those particular effects off. We then play a single copy of Ghostrick Fairy. I bumped Fairy down to 1 because when she's flip face up, you get to target a Ghostrick monster in your graveyard and set that card but banish it when it leaves the field, which is pretty good. And then also all your Ghostrick monsters have the ability that you can flip them back face down during your turn as well. So like if I flip summon all my Ghostricks, I can flip them right back down after I trigger their effects, which is pretty good to be able to do. We then play a single copy of Jack Frost. Something I will note to you guys now that we have all the levels out, something really cool is all of your level 1s are fiends, all of your level 2s are fairies, and all of your level 3s are zombies, which is kind of neat. So Ghostrick Jack Frost effect is that once per turn, you can change this card into face down defense position, and when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can change that opponent's monster to face down defense, and if you special summon this card from your hand in face down defense, which is pretty good. I like that effect to be able to just get that monster out of the way and just flip it face down. We then play 2 copies of Ghostrick Spectre, which is my favorite artwork of them all. I love Spectre. It's the cutest one in my opinion. But what it does is when a Ghostrick monster is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, or when it's destroyed by an opponent's attacking monster, you can send it to your graveyard, you can special summon this card, and if you do, draw a card, but you special summon it in face down defense. We then play 3 copies of Ghostrick Lantern. Now this is where you're getting into the pricier Ghostrick cards. I really think this card needs a reprint along with Mary, but we do play 3 copies of Lantern, because what Lantern does is when your opponent declares an attack, direct attack, or when a Ghostrick monster you control is targeted for an attack, you can negate the attack, and if you special summon this card from your hand to face down defense, which is good to be able to just get you another monster on your side of the field. It just helps out so much to get those monsters on your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Ghostrick Mary. Ghostrick Mary is really good too, because you can, once per turn, change her into face down defense, and when you take battle damage, you can discard her to special summon a Ghostrick from your deck in face down defense position. So she gets you literally any Ghostrick that you might need, which is insanely good. That's it for the Ghostrick monsters. I do play 4 other monsters in the deck that I'm going to show you guys, but I need to move these out of the way. So we're going to go ahead, and what I play in the deck for the Skeleton Mill build is 3 copies of Morphing Jar number 2 and a solo copy of Morphing Jar. So this card's at 3 and this card's at 1, but it's really interesting because what they do is if you flip summon both of these, they're both flip effect monsters. Morphing Jar's effect is if it's flip face up, both players discard their entire hand and then draw 5, which is pretty good. It kind of throws your opponent off because they're like, oh my god, I'm playing against Empty Jar now? What happened? And what the Morphing Jar number 2 does is you flip, when this card's flip summon, you shuffle all monsters on the field into the deck, and then each player reveals cards on the top of their deck until they reveal the same number of monsters that were shuffled into the main deck, and special summon the revealed monsters, revealed level 4 lower monsters in face down defense, and then send the remaining cards to the graveyard, which is pretty good as well, especially if you have something like Ghostrick Knight on your side of the field. It keeps them face down, which is really good with Morphing Jar. This card should have been a Ghostrick. It's really insane how good Morphing Jar is in this deck. Both the Morphing Jars are in this deck, and they're really, really, really pivotal. Even if you're not playing a Skeleton Mill build, this card's like a swarm card. You have like 4 Ghostricks face down, you shuffle them into the deck, and it mills your opponent out. If they've got a really good field, this is how I break boards, is with my Morphing Jar number 2. I just flip it face up, shuffle everything back, special summon back what I need, and I might hit another Morphing Jar number 2 to just roll again to mill you out even more, which happens sometimes. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're playing a single copy of Terraforming just to search our field spells, and 3 copies of Ghostrick Mansion. Ghostrick Mansion is the only field spell I feel like I need. You can play Parade if you want to play Parade, but I feel like Mansion is the best one. Monsters can attack face down defense position monsters, but they can attack directly, and if all monsters your opponent controls are face down defense position, all effect damage and battle damage inflicted to other than Ghostrick monsters is halved. So if an opponent attacks me directly with a 3,000 attack point monster, I only take 1,500, whereas if I attack you with a Ghostrick monster that has 2,000, you take the full damage, which is pretty good. We then play 2 copies of Swords of Concealing Light. I just feel like 2 copies is fine because we have link format and stuff like that. And this card is really reactive. It's good. I like it, but at the same time, I feel like 2 is fine because you're going to activate it when you need it, and you're going to have it when you need it, but there's other cards that are trap cards that I just would rather have than this card sometimes. So I just play it as a 2 of. It's good though because it flips every monster on your opponent's side of the field in face down defense, and they can't flip them back up for 2 standby phases, which is pretty good. So that's it for the spells. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, I'm playing 2 copies of Storming Mirror Force. Storming Mirror Force is really good in this deck because if your opponent attacks you directly, you just drop this and then shuffle all monsters back into the hand, which is good. 2 copies of Quaking, which flips all of my opponent's monsters face down, and then they have to stay face down. Now keep in mind that doesn't flip Ling monsters face down, so that does kind of come in a little bit hard sometimes. You can take the Quaking out and put Drowning Mirror Force in. It just depends on what you want. I just like playing at least 4 cards that if my opponent's going to attack me, I have an out to it. So I feel like this ratio is good for Mirror Forces. It just depends on which ones you want to play. You could really drop into Drowning if you want to play Drowning because they're going to attack you directly with a field spell anyways, but I like having this down because Ghostrick Knight's going to keep them face down, and plus they can't use them for link material, and it just kind of clogs up their field. Then we play 1 copy of Vanish. I bumped Vanish down to 1 because you reveal a Ghostrick in your hand, and this turn Ghostrick cards you control and face down cards you control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. There's not that much card destruction anymore. Like, if your opponent is gonna summon Access Code Talker, you can activate this first, and then your opponent's gonna think twice before going into Access Code Talker if you know that's what they're about to do. Or you can reveal this, like, right before they're gonna use their effect or something. You can just activate Vanish and stop where they're gonna destroy, which is nice. But I feel like it being searchable is fine at 1. 2 copies of Knight. Knight is really good because any card that's flipped face down stays face down, and while a Ghostrick monster is on the field, your opponent cannot flip summon any of their monsters, and when this card you control is sent to the graveyard, your opponent cannot declare attack for the rest of the turn, which is really good. So if they remove it, it stops them from attacking. And then 3 copies of Scare. Lets you target any number of face-down cards you control, change them face-up, and it lets you target any number of face-up cards your opponent controls and flip them face-down. So it flips yours up, flips theirs down, and if they have equal to the number of cards you flipped up, which is really, really good, because if you have like 5 and they have 5 monsters and they're not playing Link monsters for some reason, you can flip all of theirs face-down and flip all of yours face-up, and if you have Knight as well, all of theirs stay down, which is like, okay, that's pretty much game until you get rid of Knight. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we are going to be playing 3 copies of Angel of Mischief. Angel of Mischief is probably my favorite Ghostrick card in the entire deck, besides Spectre. But what this card does is you're going to overlay this card with another Ghostrick monster, which is pretty good, or with like another Ghostrick XYZ monster. But you can also special summon this card by using another XYZ monster. Like if I have a copy of Alucard on the field, I just go, bam, Angel of Mischief on top of Alucard. That's all you have to do to summon your Angel of Mischief. It's really easy to summon, and she's probably the best XYZ monster in the entire extra deck. And what she does is when the number of XYZ materials on this card becomes 10, you win the duel automatically. That never happens, but it can, but it's very rare. But also it has the ability that once per turn, you can detach a material from this card to add a Ghostrick spell or trap from your deck to your hand. And then once per turn, you can attach a Ghostrick card from your hand to this card on the field. Sometimes, instead of Skeleton Mill, you turn into Ghostrick Angel of Mischief, where you're just attaching cards, because this deck is all about the grind game. It really is about annoying your opponent and grinding them out, which is just the way it works. We then play 2 copies of Alucard. Alucard's really good in the deck, because what you're going to do with Alucard is you detach a material from this card, and then target a set card your opponent controls and destroy it, which is pretty good. And also, once per turn, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one other Ghostrick card in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. 1 copy of So Cute Boss. So Cute Boss is really good because you rarely summon her, but she's pretty good as well, because when you control another Ghostrick monster, you can your opponent cannot target this card for attacks, and then once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, and then target one face-up monster on the field with attack less than or equal to the combined original attack of all Ghostrick monsters on the field and destroy it. And if you do that, monster's token cannot be used as long as you control a Ghostrick monster. So it's even if she leaves the field, it still can't be used. I just play 2 Dullahan. Dullahan can basically attack, it gives you a boost because it can half the attack of an opponent's monster, and if this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add a Ghostrick card from your deck to your hand. And it gains 200 attack for each Ghostrick card you control, but it can attack half the attack, which is pretty good. I like that ability of being able to half. 1 copy of Boral Sword. It comes up every so often. It's handy, but I don't make it all that often, just to OTK. Access Code Talker is really good in this deck because it's really easy to summon to link climb in this deck. Unicorn just to pop spells or to shuffle cards back in the deck or to bounce stuff. Phoenix to pop spells and traps. Cerberus to pop monsters. Wee Witch because everything is a dark. And then a single copy of Linkuriboh, which does actually come up quite often, where you summon Linkuriboh, which is pretty much it. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. It's pretty, I would have to say, if we could get Lantern and Marion reprinted, the deck would be completely budget because everything else is a common in the deck. But other than those cards, the deck is extremely budget, which is really amazing about this deck because it's a super fun deck. But just like we got Mageline reprinted earlier, we probably will get the Lantern. They probably just forgot to reprint them, to be honest with you guys. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.